Hello, hello, and good morning. You're watching Ask BQ, a show where all your stock market related queries get answered. I'm Smriti Chaudhary, and before we begin, I'd like to remind you that you can send in all your questions through any of our social media channels or through the WhatsApp number that's on your screen. You can also write to us on the YouTube live chat. Now, let me introduce you to our guest for today. We have with us Mr. Saurabh Jain, Equity Head Research at SMC Global Securities, and Mr. Amit Bhuptani, Derivatives and Technical Research Analyst at Nirmal Bank Securities. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for taking the time out. Now, before we jump into the questions, I'd like to focus on the fertilizer sector today. Now, specifically this sector, because stocks in this sector were in the red through the last week and have kind of turned into green today. The reason being that government cut subsidy last week on these stocks, which led to fears of contraction in margins and even overall profitability. However, a media report suggests that fertilizer subsidy may top 2 lakh crores, which is more than the budgeted subsidy that was 1.7 lakh crore, which has now maybe given a positive outlook on these stocks. However, I'd like to open these questions to our experts for today, who will tell us what do they see for this sector in the next couple of quarters. First, let's come to you, Saurabh. What's the view on the sector and even particular stocks that you're constructive on?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. See, there has been mixed opinion for the fertilizer sector. There has been steep fall in the raw material prices, and in that line only we are saying that government has cut down on the subsidies. Now, different companies have different opinion. For example, a company like Coromandel International, their management looks a bit cautious with a cautious approach, considering the fact that this year we had a deficient monsoon. So they are not quite okay with the kind of the expected growth that fertilizer company would see going forward. On the other hand, company like GSFC, which is expanding, doing capex, a new plant is coming up in December, is showing the management is showing good amount of confidence. They are quite confident of achieving 15-20% kind of a growth in the fertilizers. So there has been a mixed opinion. I think if one has to bet, he has to bet consider the fact where the company's positioning is.
Any particular stocks that you're constructive on in the sector?
I think GSFC makes is a good choice in the fertilizer pack, considering the fact that the 60-70% revenue comes from the fertilizer segment, 30% comes from the industrial segment, which is also a promising segment and having a good margin profile.
All right. Let's come to you, Amit. What are the charts showing and what particular stocks are you looking at within the sector?
Yeah, good morning, Smriti. Overall, if you look at the overall sectoral front, as we have seen that yesterday only the result of Mangalore Chemical came out and it turned out to be on the positive front. So we will wait for another set of results from the fertilizer front. Overall, the setup from the fertilizer counter looks positive. There is not much of the negative front on the downside because most of the fertilizer counter has created a base on the downside. There is not much on the downside, but we might expect some positive momentum from the selective counters like GSFC, GNFC, and Chambal Fertilizer. In these three counters, we are seeing that the setup is on the positive front, and we expect 2 to 3% rally. Once the rest of the fertilizer stock come out to be on the positive front on the result basis, then Mangalore Chemical Fertilizer will also show a great run up, almost around 5 to 7% more positive momentum will be witnessed in Mangalore Chemical if the rest of the fertilizer results come out to be on the positive front. So overall view might for next 1 to 2 week might be on the range bound momentum front, but the base has been created on the downside. So there will be a more recommendation like the buy on dips strategy can be initiated in rest of the fertilizer counters.
All right, so buy on dips on fertilizers. Let's start with the questions. The first question is coming from Abhiram, and he's talking about Swan Energy. The stock is currently up about 1%, around 393. He bought the stock at 385. Let's take a long-term view on this first. Saurabh, Swan Energy, how are you viewing it?
Please take technical opinion. It's not in coverage.
All right, sure. Let's go to you, Amit. Swan Energy, what are you seeing on the charts for the stock?
2 weeks back only I have recommended it to my clients around 315 level, and yesterday also we have recommended again to our clients for the target of around 440 to 460 levels. So the downside, the support for this counter has been now created near 365 level. So whomsoever is holding this counter, I will recommend to place the stop loss around 365 level on the closing basis, because overall setup, if you look overall on the monthly and the weekly front also, from last 3 months we are seeing that the volume has been continuously getting added on in this counter, and a fresh breakout has been witnessed in this counter, and I'm expecting this counter to show the positive momentum in coming trading session also. So hold the long position with the support of 365 for the target of 440 to 460 levels.
Right. Next up, we have a question from Arvind from Chennai, and he's talking about banking stocks. Now, most of the banks have come out with their second quarter earnings. Saurabh, any particular banking stocks that Arvind should keep an eye on, especially for the long term?
I think the private banking space, Axis Bank surprised the most. If you take the bigger names like HDFC, ICICI, I feel that Axis numbers were far better than the other private sector peers, and it appears that the bank is quite confident of the growth. They have managed their net interest margin well, and the NPAs are very much under control. Very clean balance sheet and poised for growth. So I expect 15-20% kind of a return from a 1 year perspective. In the PSU space, I feel banks like Canara, Union Bank surprised the market. They have not only protected their net interest margin, but seems quite confident. Managements are quite confident with their the expected growth profile, considering the fact that the next 6 months is largely a credit off-take period, and these banks are poised for a good amount of enormous growth. With the valuation, comfort, I expect these banks should generate higher returns, in fact, better return than the private sector peers.
Okay. Amit, what banks are you looking at for the short term?
For the short-term basis, there are selective banking counters, because the rest of the counters are still not showing the confirmation. Once we have seen the fall which came in the last week session, after that, still the rest of the banks are struggling to show some pullback momentum. But the counter which looks positive as per the chart reading would be Can Bank. Canara Bank would be the first counter on the PSU front. I am expecting this counter to show some more strength, because the fresh breakout has been witnessed in today's trading session. If you look at the overall setup from the weekly and the daily front, the chart has created a base around the downside towards the 370 to 375 level. If we get any dip towards the 375 to 380 level, then it would be a buy recommendation. At this point of time also, I'm expecting the counter to show some positive momentum towards the 395, 398 level. So on the short-term momentum, Can Bank looks positive, but if you look at the midterm structure, I am expecting Axis Bank to show some positive strength. Once the counter goes above 1,000 level on the closing basis, then there might be a confirmation for the counter to show positive momentum for the upside towards 1150 level, because the setup which has been created on the monthly chart, we are expecting the counter to show positive momentum towards the 1150 levels.
Okay, next counter we're talking about is Aeroflex. The question is from Rashida. She bought the stock at 157. Now it's a Ashish Kacholia backed stock, and the stock is around 161 today, about 5% up. Saurabh, any particular fundamental change that has led to a run up in the stock today?
Again, I'm so sorry, it's not in the.
Okay, all right. Let's take a technical view then.
After in Aeroflex, we have seen that once the IPO got listed out, from that time we are seeing that the counter is showing some base momentum towards 140 to 145 range. As per the current structure, we are seeing that the rest of the subsidiaries company like Set Industries and Shah Polymers, these two counter are still struggling to show some buying momentum. But both of this counter have also shown some pullback from the 200 DMA momentum. So we are expecting in Aeroflex also the buying trend will be confirmed once the counter settles above 170 level. Well, at this point of time, I am expecting the counter to give some volume towards the 20-30% accumulation can be done at this point of time. And once counter gets a stable above 170 level or closing comes above 170 level, then I am expecting a fresh buying will be witnessed towards the 195 to 200 level. But at this point of time, the whomsoever is holding the long portion should place the stop loss at 140.
All right. Now that we're entering the festive season, the next question from Girish is on the same, and he's asking about Diwali picks. So, and he's asking especially for the 1 to 2 year horizon. So, what are your Diwali picks?
I think a bunch of real estate, auto, banking, hotels, infra, capital goods will shall make a very good portfolio for the next 1 2 years. In the automobile sector, I prefer we prefer Maruti. Considering the fact that the company's market share is growing, the model launches are getting very good traction, especially the SUVs demand for the from the Maruti stable. In the capital goods, I would recommend Larsen Tubro. It's a very good proxy for the Indian economic growth, and the company is poised for the good expansion, expected expansion in the margins and revenue growth. In the hotels, Chalet makes a good choice. In the real estate, I expect Shobha and company like Phoenix Mills also make a good choice. So I think these are some of the stocks which one can invest for the next 1 2 years.
Okay. And based on the technicals, Amit, what stocks are you looking at to add this Diwali to your portfolio?
This Diwali pick, the view might be from a 3 month to 6 month horizon. If we look at the overall structure of Inox Wind would be my recommendation. I will recommend it to my clients also in the yesterday trading session. If you look at the overall setup of the Inox Wind, from last 4 to 5 months, we are seeing that the counter has been consolidating in the same range with a strong volume addition. If you look at the setup also, the chart has created an inverse head and shoulder pattern also. So the on the downside, we are seeing that the base support is at 202, where we are seeing that with TDMA support is also becoming at 202 to 200 level. So risk reward favorable. If the counter is on the upside, I'm expecting the counter to go towards the 265 to 290 levels in coming trading sessions. So I'm expecting Inox Wind can be a best buy position at this point of time with the support of 202 for the upside target towards 265 to 290 levels.
Okay, let's take a question from mail now. So the question is from Harish from Mumbai. He's talking about Divi's Labs. Now, he bought the stock at 3525. He wants to know if he should hold on to the stock or is it a good time to exit? Saurabh, let's come to you. Divi's Labs.
I think we have seen good amount of buying in the pharma stocks. Consider the fact that the competition has reduced in the US markets, and there are a lot of drugs which are going off patent and hold good opportunity for the Indian pharmaceutical companies like Divi's. So I expect that the numbers should improve going forward. I think it's a hold.
Okay, all right. We have lots more questions coming up. And the next up is from Abhiram, and he is talking about Apollo Micro. He bought it at 55 per share. Amit, let's take a view on Apollo Micro. Should he continue holding the stock?
Yes, definitely you should hold the stock. The stock has shown a breakout in today's trading session with a healthy volumes. I'm expecting, as per the current scenario, the Fibonacci setup which is creating in this counter for the upside extension is directly coming towards the 94 to 98 level. So you should hold the long position with the trailing stop loss which is coming around 77. So you should place the support at 77 for the upside target toward 94 to 98 levels.
All right. Saurabh, any view on Apollo Micro?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's move forward then. Next up, we have a question from Rudransh, and he's talking about Bajaj Finance. He has bought the share at 6932. He's asking your medium-term outlook on the same, Bajaj Finance. Saurabh, let's start with you.
The outlook looks quite promising. In the last 2 3 quarters, we have seen good set of earnings coming from the Bajaj Finance, and the kind of earnings they are posting, and the likely growth which is likely to witness in the next few quarters. So it gives confidence that the stock is it's a good investment play. I expect 20-30% kind of a return. I expect more than 9,000 rupees levels for the Bajaj Finance.
So 20-30% in the medium term. And short term, Amit, Bajaj Finance, how is it looking?
As per the short-term scenario, I'm expecting the counter to remain in the range-bound momentum only. We might get a downfall towards 7,300 to 7,250 level. But if we look over a structure on the monthly basis for both Bajaj Finance and Finserv, on the long-term setup, the setup is looking really strong. And we might take some more 1 to 1.5 months for this counter to get stable. And we might get in those time with the bounce, the dip also we might get. So in that dip, we should buy in both this counter because the setup for the long-term structure is really on the positive front. So wait for new buying in this both the counter Bajaj Finance and Finserv, because at per the current scenario, still the finance counter all on the NBFC front also is not looking on the positive scenario.
All right. Next up, we have a wiring company, and the question is from Mehek on Mother Son Sumi Wiring, and she wants to get a fundamental view on it. Saurabh, is it a good time to buy? And if you already have the stock, should you continue holding it?
I think if you have it, you can hold it. The management is quite confident of the future growth. So the numbers are likely to improve going forward, considering the fact that the raw material cost is also in favor and the demand is expected to improve and is actually so it's a hold for.
Next up, we have a question from Naresh Thakur, and he's talking about manufacturing sector. Now, with elections coming up, there may be a lot of capex, especially into infrastructure, and maybe manufacturing sector may get a buoyant demand from that. So, what stocks within the manufacturing sector now? I understand that's a whole lot of things that you're including, but any particular stocks you're looking for the longer term, especially?
I think from the long term in the heavyweight, I think Larsen Toubro makes is the top choice for investing in the industrials. And apart from that, I think a lot of infrastructure activity is also happening. So companies like LG Infra, PNC Infra, KNR Construction also makes a good choice.
Okay, Amit, anything specific in the manufacturing space that somebody might Naresh wanted to add it into his portfolio? So, any stocks that you recommend at this point?
Realty counter definitely looks a positive, and I'm expecting Abra Realty to show some positive strength, because the counter we are seeing it is continuously creating a volume momentum. The fall which we have seen from last 3 to 4 weeks, the counter has also created a base on the downside. So Abra Realty would be a great bet in coming trading sessions, and the momentum is also looking very strong in this counter towards 1200 to 1250 levels at the upper end.
Okay, great that you mentioned the realty sector. The stocks have, from what we've seen with the results, it's been pretty good season for the realty sector. Any other apart from Oberoi Realty, so what other realty stocks you're looking at, especially for the longer term, considering the demand is quite buoyant right now?
I think Bangalore players who are expanding into the western markets like Shobha, Prestige Estates makes a good choice. Mumbai player Phoenix Mills also makes a good choice. I think these are good proxy for what we are seeing in terms of in the retail segment, footfalls and the demand for the luxury segment.
Okay. Next up, we have a question from Amit Rastogi, and he wants a view on Angel One for the long term. Now, Angel One's second quarter results were fantastic, and they spoke about how their app is kind of contributing to the revenues, and even now that the future, almost every other day you have a future expiry, every other day of the week, so that has kind of contributed to their revenues. But what other fundamentals are you seeing in the stock that may give you a better returns in the future?
See, I think all those companies who have made good amount of investment in the technology is now seeing the benefits of this. Angel One is actually shown a good amount of growth, considering the fact that they have invested heavily in the technology. You know, a lot of competition is also coming. For example, recently you must have seen advertisement from the HDFC Securities, HDFC Sky. So I think these companies are making good inroads and good amount of penetration. So I think these companies are poised for growth, but at the same time, valuations are on the higher side.
Amit, let's take a technical view as well. Is it a good time to enter into this space right now, considering the valuations are high?
If you look at this counter in Angel One, the risk reward is not favorable because the counter is continuously trading on the upper end. But whomsoever is holding long position, I will give the trailing support of 2481. So the counter goes below 2480 on the closing basis, then profit need to be booked on the downside. And if anyone is getting dip towards the 2500, then the new long positions can be created. But at this point of time, for creating a new long position, risk reward is not at all favorable.
All right. Next up, we have a question on Grasim Industries. The question is from Veer, and he's holding 60 shares at 1500 per share. Should he book profit in the share? Let's come to you, Saurabh, first. Grasim Industries.
I think on the operation front, the company is posting good show, and the expectation is that the that the earning this year would be higher, and the next year also will be higher. The company is doing a lot of capex. I think if one remains invested, he can earn a good amount of profits. So I would rather suggest hold it for.
Okay. From what I can see, Grasim has given only 7 to 8% returns in the last 6 months. Amit, is it a good time to should you buy it? And even if I think he's already holding it, so should he continue holding it or get out of the stock?
Yes, he should hold, but as per the current scenario, the stock has been in the range of 1860 to 1900 range. Once the stock gets settled above 1900 level, then again there might be a confirmation on the buying front, which might take stock to 2000 plus. So currently, there might be a buy on dips strategy in this counter. If a counter goes below 1865, then the long portion need to be exited, because once the stock goes below 1865 level on the closing basis, there might be a dip of almost around 100 to 150 points on the lower end. But if we take the outlook for the medium term to long term structure, the setup looks positive.
All right. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time out and answering so many questions for us. And viewers, do stay tuned. Lots more coming up on BQ Prime.